Okay, welcome everyone to Past Presidents, host JJ Lee. This is my very first time hosting a guest, and so JJ Lee is our willing guinea pig. Welcome, JJ, to Past Presidents and Genealogy for Asian Canadians.
Thank you. Thank you. This is exciting. Yeah.
Okay, before we get started, I will get formal and do our land acknowledgement. So as we gather here today, we acknowledge we are on Treaty 6 territory and the homeland of the Métis. We pay our respects to the First Nations and Métis ancestors of this place and reaffirm our relationship with one another. I love that one, actually. So, everyone, this is JJ Lee. Through her mixed media paintings and installations, JJ Lee explores the hyphen between identities and representations that are the result of colonization and immigration. She is exhibited widely in public institutions and artist-run centers across the country, winning several grants and awards, both for her individual work and the Drawing Room Collective. In 2022, she received the Price Teaching Excellence Award. Her artwork can be found in both Canadian and American public and private collections. Living in Toronto with her family, JJ Lee is a tenured associate professor at OCAD University. Contemporary issues of... Sorry, I botched that. JJ Lee is a tenured associate professor at OCAD University, Contemporary Issues of Representation. She is represented by Prow Gallery in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and Gallery on Queen in Fredericton, New Brunswick. Her recent exhibition, In My Yesterday, at the Museum of Immigration at Pier 21 in Halifax, Nova Scotia, traces her family's multi-generational immigration from China to the Maritimes.
Thank you so much.
Yes, you are most welcome. Let me start with a brief video.
Would you like me to speak a little about that piece?
You wouldn't mind? I can play it again.
Yeah. This is one of my forays into animation. I consider my practice drawing based. I used to be a painter, but for sustainability and accessibility reasons, I feel drawing is better suited to what I want to say. So this is a drawing of my maternal grandparents, and I thought about the idea of erasure and the erasure of history and identities that can happen when we're, come to a new place, or stories that can be buried. Like, for example, my parents didn't really talk about the immigration story, so it was a lot of research for me.
That is beautiful. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, it was really fun. I really did a lot of new work. And a lot of went into a lot of different areas that it was new to me.
Why do you do what you do?
I can't help it. I've always drawn. I've always loved to draw. And it's interesting. My dad was a civil engineer and worked for the Nova Scotia Department of Highways. He got pretty high up, as far up as a Chinese man could go, he used to say, because there was a glass ceiling. My mom was a nurse, an RN, trained in Hong Kong, and she moved to Canada. She worked a little bit until she had many children. So, but I'm the youngest of 5, and all of us are in the arts. There's 3 Bachelor of Fine Arts in my family, 2 MFAs, and there's an invested interest in the arts. We have no idea where it came from. They stopped trying to get us to be doctors and pharmacists for quite a while. And and eventually, since I'm the youngest of five, they gave in. My eldest sister did actually do 1 year of med school, and she got scholarships for it. And after a year, she's like, Mom, Dad, I actually don't want to be a doctor. And she dropped out of med school and moved in with her white boyfriend. That so it was like, whoa. And in our community, it was very, very small. It was like, whoa. Yeah, that caused ripples. But fortunately, my other sister decided to like go to York University to study contemporary dance. My other sister went to NASCAD. My brother was saying, I don't need high school piece of paper to prove my worth. My parents are like all these rebellious children. So by the time I came along, Mom, Dad, I want to go to art school. And like, go, go, go. Like you do whatever you want. And they were incredibly supportive of us and our endeavors. And I know that some people in the community, my mom would tell me that some of them had said to her, why would you let your children study the arts? And then after, this is kind of cute, after I, became a professor, university, award-winning, and all this stuff, and having a good salary, my mom said to the naysayers, she was like, see, my children are doing very well.
Finally, she can regain some face having tea with her friends.
Yeah. I just want to say, I mean, if people don't mind, if you feel comfortable turning on your cameras, I would love to see who I'm talking to. But of course, you don't have to. I totally respect that. Yeah. I understand how it is. Sometimes you just don't want to, but that's okay. Hi. I've done some online teaching, and I used to have to bribe my students to turn on their cameras with bonus points, but it didn't always work.
So, JJ, please tell us about your exhibition. When did it run? Where did it run? And what was that like for you?
It was at the Pier 21 Museum of Immigration in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and that's where I was born and raised. I'll sort of tell the story of how it all came about. So my parents were very, very stubborn and refused to move into a retirement home. And the five of us were really trying to. It was a little bit conflicted because I grew up with my grandmother, and there was the expectation that you're supposed to take care of your parents, but we didn't feel we felt like they would have had better care and less worry for us if they moved into a home. So they moved into a retirement home finally. And it was 2020, December, and my parents said, can you clear out the house? You quarantine there and clean out the house. So I brought my husband and kid to Halifax, and we stayed there for 2 months going through stuff, books, lots of ginseng, cupboards and cupboards of ginseng, tea, knickknacks, pens, elastic bands. But I found this certificate. And growing up, I did not know about the head tax. It was just never spoken about. I heard it vaguely when there was some Canadian, apology, but didn't really understand it. So I brought it to my dad and I said, Dad, who's this? It was a picture of a 17-year-old boy. And he said, that's my father. And so that sort of opened up the whole doorway into my investigation into my family's history. My grandfather also ran a laundry business in Halifax. called the Charlie Wa, even though there was nobody named Charlie Wa. It was two other gentlemen. And upstairs in the attic, I found the laundry bags that were used to hold the customer's laundry. And within it, I found brown paper that was used to wrap the clean clothes and wrap in string and return to the customers. So this paper was very, very old and was embedded with so much history and story that it was important for me to honor that history. And so all the drawings on paper were done on paper that was found in the house. So all the drawings were on the laundry paper or writing paper, my dad's diagrams from when he was in engineering school. There was a lot of vellum, tracing paper, rice paper for calligraphy, and it was also my way to engage in the idea of sustainability and honor. So I found all this stuff, lots of tax bills, coins, a teapot, like hundreds of things. And I thought, this needs to have a home. The story of the Chinese in the Maritimes really needs to have a place. Growing up in Halifax was interesting because we used to always say, why not Vancouver? Or why not Toronto or San Francisco? There were so few of us there. And the answer was always, well, your uncle so-and-so was here. And then it's like, well, why was so-and-so here? It's like, well, so-and-so was here. So I understand, immigrants come to where there's family and where there's friends and there's support. But I never knew what the first Chinese person come to Halifax and why Halifax.
Do you still have that record, the one of your grandfather when he was 17?
Well, this is what I'm about to say, is that I donated a bunch of stuff to the Pier 21 Museum of Immigration. And this is kind of ironic. So I donated a bunch of stuff and they took 50 objects, including my grandfather's coat and many things, the laundry bags and lots of artifacts. Abacus, 1927 accounting books, written all in Chinese with some special characters specific to, it was kind of code so you couldn't fake the books or no one could to fudge the numbers. It was interesting. And I donated to them. And then I came back to Toronto after clearing out the house, and it sold, 55 years of stuff. It was a big project. And then when I came back to Toronto in my studio, I just started drawing. And I was drawing and drawing and drawing. And it was very interesting because I've been a practicing artist for a very long time. And but this was different. I felt this compulsion to tell this story. And it's almost like, and I told my dad this, it was almost like my grandfather was saying, you have to tell this story. You just need to. So with all these drawings, I decided to propose an exhibition to Pier 21, marrying their objects, my objects, drawings of these objects, drawings from photographs, into a multimedia immersive show. So the show is divided into 6 chapters, and basically I wanted it like you're walking through a book. Do you want me to share pictures? It might be helpful to yeah, instead of me describing it.
I was hoping you were going to say that.
Yeah. Okay, just a second. Oops, how do I? Um, this is I gave a talk to the Ontario Women's History Network. They asked me to give a talk, and I said, "Well, I'm not a." Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, I'm not a historian, and they said, "Well, I think the way you investigate your family history, you are a historian." So anyway, so start from the bottom. So I often, how much of the screen can you see?
Your desktop's over right on through three columns to your picture.
Okay, I'll just expand it so it doesn't. As a mentor from Halifax, and I often mention this because I think this informed my identity um, as a Chinese Canadian and not having a lot of support.
I wish I could process, the things that you went through visually, because I'm also going through a similar process, cleaning up my mother's house, going through old things, going through old papers. And, my way of dealing with the memories that come up is to write and to research. And so when you said, you were going through like tax records and you found an old Chinese immigration certificate, I would have been on that. That would have been like Christmas Day to find
Yes,
tax records.
it was incredible, and it made me think about, the statements that we get from credit cards that we just sort of toss aside. And here we had one from 1945 that was a bill that was like handwritten. It was just
Well, just
well,
even because tax records, we don't often we're not able to research them. Okay, that's not true. Archives do carry tax records. There,
okay.
many people don't realize that they can research the history of their house through tax records, especially historic ones, and especially for Chinese people. We were ignored between 1872 and 1897 in BC for vital stats, except for if we were randomly registered under vital statistics. But there are two things in life, what do they say, that are guaranteed, right? Death and taxes. And so I was able to research a family that was almost unresearchable, except they paid taxes every single year. They had a laundry that paid taxes. And every year they paid even more taxes. So taxes and researching tax records is an incredibly rich proposition, because not only is it, you do the calculation of, holy cow, like they paid a lot of tax in 1945. That was the war, and they were still paying so much money. But the other thing about tax records that is fantastic is that, unlike census records, it comes every year. So like a city directory, you can literally go through the 20, 30, 40 years that your family owns their home and go through the tax records. If it's old.
Amazing how much it can reveal.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. And the address. And another thing that it reveals, tax records, is sort of an anti-Chinese slant, because you'll see in historically in Canadian tax records that right across the country, Chinese people started laundries as almost their first business because it was really easy. You just need water and a bucket and soap, right? And you don't actually need to speak much English. And so it's a great starter job. But with the rise of laundries came the rise of anti-laundry laws in both overt and covert ways.
Yeah, I know that laundries and restaurants were pretty much the only jobs that Chinese people could have because of the incredible racism and structures and barriers that were in place. Yeah, so my father went to engineering school. He was the second person in Halifax to get an Chinese person to get an engineering degree. But the first person, who we called Uncle Chuck, never was able to break through and get a job with his engineering degree. So, but he did set the path. Anyway, so this is the house, but I want to show you that this is.
You'll have to click on something for us to see it. Because right now, all we can see is slide 1 JPEG.
Oh, interesting. I can't just.
It might be what you selected to share. Right now, we're just looking at your desktop files.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing. I feel like I should be able to advance through the pictures.
Yeah, you should. I think if you choose like just your entire screen, and then we'll be able to see everything. Oh wow. Is that you? Holy cow.
I think people can relate.
Before and afters as well.
There's before, there's after.
We've all been there, JJ.
Yeah.
Will be.
Can you see that slide?
Yep.
Okay, great. So this is the accounting book I was telling you about. There's a teapot, the laundry bag. I mean, I just found there was a trunk in the attic of my grandfather's clothes that he had brought from China to Halifax. These are the documents. I can already see Linda drooling over it.
Yeah.
But this here is you can see some of the text and the money that was sent back and forth between Halifax and China.
Wow.
Hundreds and hundreds of photographs.
Just go back to the documents one more time. So those were actual remittance slips that money being sent back to China?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm putting together a donation for the Bank Museum of Canada because they're very interested in this stuff. Yeah. Photographs, there it is. Morris Lum took this picture of my my grandfather's head tax certificate, and I love the back of it. I did a drawing of it because it shows the passage back and forth between Halifax and Canada. So there was the museum. So yeah, I started drawing, and then I asked to have a show, and they said yes. So I was like, cool. So it's, as I said, it's in 6 chapters, but during the research of interviewing my dad and his sister and etc., and finding some of my dad's writing, I found out that my great-grandfather had actually come to Canada to work on the railway.
What?
Yeah, I had no idea. I had no idea. And that he had been in Halifax. He forgot. It was actually his sister, who's older than my dad, who told me. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy. And he made enough money to buy a street in Guangzhou and all this stuff. I don't know, all these stories. So that's my great-grandfather there. He was the first one to arrive. And that little boy beside him holding the ball, that's my dad. So this is the house that they built in China. But you can see in the exhibition, I have artifacts and artwork together. But the show really starts with chapter 1. And so this is an example of the drawing I did on the brown paper so this is drawing of my grandfather on the laundry paper. This is his suit, and this is a pillowcase that found, which they only charged 35 cents. And this is the coat. And each chapter was color-coded. Whoops. I see. So, certain colors. So chapter 2, the Charlie Well laundry. This is a laundry bag, and it was interesting working with a museum because it's just a different approach than working in an art gallery where everything had to be climate controlled and very, very, very carefully preserved. But I wanted some kind of interaction between the viewer, the artwork, the audio, the video, and etc. So what was important for me was to have representations of the same thing throughout in different media. For me, this is the way you view or understand history in its different contexts through different lenses. So here on the left, we have the drawing of my dad and his sister, the sister who told me about my great-grandfather, from a little picture I found when they were in China, and there it is on right below there. Or that wallpaper I designed, I did digital drawings, and I got it put together and made a patterning because I wanted to create a sort of an interior domestic space, and also referencing chinoiserie and toile, domestic patterning that's used in houses. And I also wanted to honor my grandfather's laundry business, so I had images of him printed on these sheets and hung like lingerie.
I really love that double visual of his pictures and on the laundry, which is hanging.
Thank you. Like you can see here in the wallpaper, you can see this picture here was from that's from the big picture. Showed
yeah.
you
From the house.
So basically in 1950, it wasn't until 1950 did my dad and my grandmother could come to Canada and be reunited with my grandfather. And my dad had never really seen his father because he left when he was an infant. And I sort of highlighted this his Canadian citizenship. They said, "What color is he?" And they said yellow. I was like, "Whoa, that's kind of weird."
It's really off-putting the first time you read something like that.
Yeah, it's like, what?
Yeah. It's like I didn't read that right. Is that so? How
Yeah, I agree. I had to read it. His occupation was laundryman.
How old was your dad when he was reunited with his dad?
18.
Wow.
18. So I have an audio recording of him. If this was my actual PowerPoint, I would play the audio recording, but he speaks about seeing his father for the first time ever and how overwhelmed with what a profound feeling it was. So that's my grandfather greeting him. Then we move into my mom. My mom and dad had love letter correspondence. They were set up by my dad's cousin and my mom's best friend. So between Halifax and Hong Kong, there were like letters written, over 70 letters written. And my mom kept them, and they're there in that suitcase.
You're so lucky.
These are actually reproductions because they're so delicate.
Right. But still, that she
kept
all
that
70.
suitcase was the actual suitcase that my mom brought with her when she arrived to Hong Kong. And you can see in the middle there's a screen and a little hearing device. So that the audio visuals were photographs, animations, like the one you saw, audio record interviews that were part of all the artwork. So it was important for me to have the artifacts, the photographs, the documents, the drawings, all sort of, and the prints of the digital drawings all come together on one plane, so that it wasn't just one medium. It was a bunch of them.
No, and I feel like you've not just brought together a number of disparate items, but that you've created a different meaning out of them with your art, with, you know, your pictures on top of the laundry paper, which is itself like a second generation of art, like with so it's too bad that, you know, we aren't able to hear the story, because then we get completely immersed in all the meanings.
Well, there's definitely, yeah, there's like I was saying earlier, that paper is imbued with history. It is so, it had a life, and it was just sitting there. And actually, this dream I had, this is weird. I didn't. So the paper is brown and striped. And many years ago, I had a dream that I went to an attic, some attic, and I found these drawings on brown stripy paper. And apparently they were my drawings. And in the dream, I remember thinking, I don't remember making these drawings. So when I saw this paper, I was like, whoa, that's oh, this gave me the shivers.
That's your ancestry telling you pretty strongly.
Pretty, yeah. This is what's gonna happen to
Here's
you.
your future, just so you know.
So these are the letters written back and forth in English and Chinese, mostly Chinese. Yeah, it's quite. I was really uncertain whether to include it or not. I mean, they're so personal.
Mm-hmm.
But so when I found out I was going to have this show, I told my mom and dad, I was like, I'm going to have this big show. It's going to be this is a major show in a museum. It's a solo show, but so they knew it was going to happen. They were happy for me, but then my mom passed away in the making of this show. So this wall of her was really an homage to her. And then when she passed away, it was very, very difficult. My parents have been married for 65 years, and we decided to take my dad from Halifax, where he had lived there since he was 18 years old, to Toronto to relieve the caretaking of my eldest sister. There's 4 of us who live here. So we brought him to Toronto, and he just passed away a few months ago. So both of my parents died in the process of the beginning, the donation, interviews, making the show. And so we had his funeral the last week of the exhibition, and I had a shrine, which I'll show you. To the right, you can see the shrine. And my siblings and I were able to include my father's picture and tea set there. It was quite a beautiful ceremony. So that photograph of my mom and my brother. So my parents had a kid. Their first child was a boy. Yay! So they were living the dream. They're coming to a new country. Their first child was a boy, and it was like they could have everything they could have wanted. But unfortunately, when Edmund was riding a bike to school, he was hit by a bus and he died. And so this profound tragedy occurred. And one of the most difficult things I found in the attic was a suitcase full of little boys' clothes.
Oh.
Still in its plastic wrapping with their tags. So that picture on the wall you see of that blue square thing, that's actually a picture of one of the shirts with the wrapping. And yeah, it was kind of interesting because it's sort of like the crush of that achievement of that ideal life shattered. But they moved on, and I think it really spoke to my parents' resilience. Okay, that was a video, sorry.
My grandparents as well, they lost a little boy. And we also found a trunk filled with his funeral clothes, where the clothes, sorry, not his funeral clothes, the clothes that my grandfather would have purchased for a very traditional Chinese funeral in this suitcase, and then his portrait, the little boy's portrait. And so for the first time, I got to see this boy that I'd not even heard about, because it was such a loss to them that they, we did Qingming every year at his grave, but I didn't know who he was, and no one ever explained who he was. I'd certainly never seen his face. And so it took until after both my grandparents had passed away for us to see this suitcase. And then it was, oh, what's this? And then you're not prepared for the emotional impact of opening that suitcase and then finding what you find.
Profound. And I can't, I lived vicariously the loss that my parents experienced, and gained so much more respect for them to have so much resilience. And I think they have so much resilience to I can't imagine being 18 years old, not speaking a word of English, and coming to an entirely new country, and and going on. My dad went to Yale University for his master's degree. Like it's just and he came from a tiny village, Anyway, so this section was a sort of an homage to there's Edmonds, and my mom. I interviewed her, and she was telling stories about how she brought Edmund to see her father in Hong Kong, and what a joy that was. So there's a shrine, and you can see to the left is my mom, which I hadn't planned for the show until she passed away, and then we added my dad, and then there's Edmund, and then my grandparents.
Oh, JJ, that's beautiful.
Yes. And then the show ends with us, the first ones born in Canada, and I have this groovy orange 70s orange wallpaper, and my dad, even though it's funny, my mom used to say, had said she was so excited not to have to marry someone who ran a restaurant. She was really glad she married someone who was professional and had a good job. But my dad loved running restaurants. He couldn't even cook, but he just loved that whole welcome and the tinkle. Like he just loved that. So I grew up also as a Chinese restaurant kid.
Oh, did you? Yeah.
Yeah, where you steal the maraschino cherries from behind the bar, and you're like filling your pop glasses, and you're like running around, smelling like egg rolls. It's yeah.
And you go home straight after school because you've got to help out at the restaurant.
Yeah, yeah. And then Canada's History approached me and said, we want you to do this little insert, 8-page insert. You can do whatever you want. You can have words, you can all pictures, or whatever you want. So I wrote this story it's sort of a companion piece to the exhibition in Halifax. And the museum was generous enough to print lots of copies so that every visitor that came to the museum could take away this 8-page booklet. And that's,
I got the copy. Thank you very much.
Oh, good. You got it in the mail. Okay, great. And so that's me in my studio, and I just learned that I won the award for journalistic excellence from the Canadian Ethnic Media Association.
Huzzah! Yes, you did. Congratulations.
And I was like,
oh,
it's also interesting. So they were talking to me, and they were saying, so what would you like engraved on your trophy? Journalist? And I'm like, I'm an artist, actually. I've never written anything before in my life. I'm just like, this is my first time, but it's written with such a personal honesty. I mean, I think it's that rawness that comes through in the, and it touches a lot of people. So it's a kind of a cool thing to be able
So this
to
is your first crack at it and you win an award for
yeah.
journalistic excellence. Now you can just retire on your laurels.
Yeah,
I did it once,
exactly.
I won an award. That's all I need.
Yeah, I just whipped off this thing and yeah. So and so this is a spread showing some of my drawings and the photograph and a story of my my mom. And so this is just a little bit details into the artwork. Here's my grandpa, cigar, looking pretty dapper in the laundry, and to the right is the laundry business. And so I drew objects that I found, lots and lots of keys, a scale. This is an interesting drawing. I found writing paper and I started drawing charcoal on it. But as I was drawing, the impressions of the text that my mom's writing started showing through, and it started appearing, and it was incredible. It's almost like the more I covered, the more was revealed. And that was so a few of those drawings have text. It's hard to capture. And it's an example of my dad's engineering
Even the
skills.
blank paper had a life of its own.
Yeah, even the blank paper. Exactly. Exactly. And I found a lot of tracing paper and a lot of translucent paper. So I played with layers. This is actually 3 layers of drawing, and there's a drawing on each layer. And I just played with the arrangement of them. And then that became an animation as well. But there's the laundry paper, stripy brown paper. There it is. And there's my grandfather reading reading a newspaper in the laundry on the laundry paper.
You're an incredible artist, JJ.
Thank you.
So sympathetic and beautifully done.
This is the first drawing I did after my mom passed, and it was incredibly. She was a woman that never slept, so it was kind of interesting to have her rest there. And then I started getting into digital drawings, which I'd never done before, but fortunately my kids really conversant in digital, is coming over and telling me about layers and things. But for me, I was trying to mimic real like ink and watercolor and charcoal through digital means, because I was really interested in this play between what's real and what's not, and what's authentic and what's not. Because sometimes I think about authenticity. I think because, I can't really speak Cantonese. I was born here. So this idea of authenticity was very interesting to me. And then so these digital drawings developed into wallpaper that corresponded. And my grandmother figured prominently. She was quite the matriarch, and I think she's in a whole other show. Like she's gonna have a show of her own, man. And then so there was also animations and Super 8 films and slides, and that's me in the middle. There's me. Happy birthday. And my dorky cousin. And I was lucky enough to have an audio recordings of my parents before they passed. So during the exhibition, it was kind of difficult to hear the voices, but anyway. And then I got lots of press, which is great.
Amazing.
And this is the last slide. So this is what I'm trying to say. Hey, if you own a museum or a gallery, trying to do
I don't, but I know some people that do.
Yeah, I've got a show for you.
Yeah.
And so
Have you talked or yeah, it, what do you need to get your show across the country?
you tell me.
Uh,
I don't
yeah.
know. It's interesting because I've been, so invested in teaching, like teaching, teaching and having an art practice. It's interesting in academia because you're expected, it's like publish or perish. In the arts, it's exhibit or expire. So you have to maintain your practice, but at the same time, teaching is all encompassing. And now I'm chair of the drawing and painting program. Um, and so they're not an easy fit. So I've been sort of out of the loop, so to speak. And so when students come up and ask me, like, how do you get a gallery? And I was like, you would know better than me. Like, I have no idea.
Knock on doors.
Not
No,
gonna, like, what do I do? I just like cold call. I really don't know.
but
Um,
I do know some people here. So if I and I know people who sit on the board here and they were talking about representation. So I do want to mention something about that. Like really hits me about your work is that you have not only uncovered but made into art, found the value in your parents' papers, and then like been the conduit through which those archives got to the museum. And I really need for our community to do this on a like an individual basis, because we need to rebuild our archives, like our own community archives, because they don't exist, right? Like archives have not, how should I put this kindly, have not turned their eye towards our community to build archives. And so the dearth of historical information for our community is quite shocking. And so I'm glad that this is the path that you took, because I'm sure that it could have been more expedient to simply throw things out, or not to see value in all of that paper.
right. And that our histories, I mean, we were taught so much to be humble, put your head down, don't stick. My dad used to say, don't make yourself, noticeable. He was always the model minority. So this is kind of interesting. My parents, I've heard this very common about Chinese parents, that they have a hard time saying the words "I love you" and "I'm proud of you," but because they know it, and it's just supposed to know it. Anyway,
Does
so
anyone here have any questions? We're coming to a close, and if you
okay.
do, we don't have too many people here, so just pop your microphone on and introduce yourself and ask your question.
Yep. Anyway, I wanted to say that my dad did say that he was proud of me. So
Oh,
it's, yeah.
I'm glad.
Anyone have questions?
Hi, JJ.
Hi.
Um, I was blown away by your exhibit. I saw it online, and I think I had reached out to you hoping that you would come to the West Coast and show
Oh,
your
right.
amazing
Yes.
exhibit. Yeah, that was a few months ago. I
Yeah.
mean, your presentation here was inspiring, very touching, very personal, and it's to be that vulnerable to share these stories. It's
Mhm.
really important. And I wish that I could just have 1 ounce of that, to kind of be able to tell my story, because we all have personal stories.
You
I would
do.
love to be able to share them. And you have inspired me to,
Yeah.
possibly do something. But thank you so much. That was an amazing presentation. I wish I got to see it in person. I hope you get to come to the West Coast.
Yeah,
I'd love to see it.
The museum is putting out proposals.
Oh,
They
wonderful.
put a proposal to the new Chinese Canadian Museum. We'll see, but the best part is inspiring people. Like there's people who from all different cultures who come from. We're all settlers, and we all come from. No, we're all settlers. Many of us are settlers, and so there's even like Dutch immigrants, and they wanted to like ancestry, and they wanted to go talk to their grandmother and look at the things that she still had, and like, and you know, it makes you want to connect with your family. Yeah.
I'm sure that my dad has a bunch of stuff that he hasn't shared with me. Like when I get together with him, you know, I ask him all those questions about, you know, what was your childhood like? You know, what do you want to share with me? I'm sure he's got a lot of paperwork because he was a collector of many, many things. I would love to go through it, but I'm not ready to do that yet. I don't want to invade his space. So I got to take my time. But, you know, just having to sit down with him and ask him lots of questions, that's certainly helped me. And this amazing group here. I mean, Linda Yip, she's been amazing. The Facebook group, you know, just putting out, just asking questions and getting help with all the questions I have. It's been truly, truly, it was meant to be for me to be here, to learn from all of you. So I thank you.
Yeah, I really love this community that's I've been opened up to, and feel very supported. And I do think we need to tell our stories. What's
the chances of getting, do you have any more of those inserts that we can get? Like, are you the insert for that magazine?
Boxes and boxes.
Oh, do you? Oh,
I'm gonna bring some to the award show. I get to go to a gala.
Oh, wonderful.
And I'm giving a sabbatical presentation next week, so I'm gonna have some of those, but I can mail you some if you.
You know what? Because we have a local museum, the Museum of Surrey here, and they're always looking for interesting, you know, about the history. I'm trying to investigate the history of the Chinese in Surrey. So if you had that, maybe I could bring it to them and then show them that this is possible, you know?
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
It's interesting because some places in Toronto like are interested only in Toronto history, and not only interested in Toronto history. I mean, that's a big history and there's lots to deal with. So there's like, for example, there's the Toronto Museum. I was thinking of approaching, but it had to be Toronto stories. I was like, oh.
I'm just going to hop in here because June has messaged the group. There's the Museum's Assistance Program. Thank you, June. It says access to heritage component promotes access. Oh, June, you can speak to it.
Hey, hi, June.
Hi, good to see you again. Yeah, because I was working with, have been working with Catherine Clement on the paper trail exhibit at the Chinese Canadian Museum, and which received Commemorate Canada funding, so federal government funding, and the grant officer recommended this as the next program to access funds to create a traveling exhibition.
Oh, wow.
Of the paper trail afterwards. And then the exhibition circulation fund is for museums across Canada if they want to host the paper trail traveling exhibition to their region, then they apply for that to cover the costs on both ends.
Okay.
Yeah. So sometimes that's the barrier, right? It's like to get into an exhibition program schedule, they like museums and galleries, they schedule 3 years ahead.
Yes.
And
they do. Yeah. And cost is a barrier. I mean, it would not be easy or cheap to mount my show. I'll admit that, but I think having financial assistance and support for this.
Yeah, it has all the kind of federal like national pieces kind of represented, right?
Okay, I'm gonna look into that and maybe add it to my spiel and tell the museum Pier 21 about it too.
Perfect.
Thanks, Jude.
Oh, we can't hear you, Linda.
Sorry, one comment from Jane who said, this art showing certainly adds flesh to a family story. So thank you for that. Now we have just a couple more minutes. JJ, I will close out by asking, what else is coming up for you?
Right now, I'm actually thinking of turning I was telling June this earlier, my show into some sort of media, like a film or interactive website or something. One of my assistants who did help me with the animation worked for the NFB, and she was like, you've got all the material that you could put together. So I'm really interested in exploring that medium, and it's something that's much more easily distributable and shareable than a huge exhibition with hundreds of drawings and objects and yeah, so that's what's next.
So yeah, everyone, you can find JJ on the web at jjlee.ca or on Instagram at jumpinjj.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for everyone. And nice to see you all. And yeah, maybe we'll meet in person one day.
Yes, and if there's anything that we can do to help you get this show literally on the road, let us know.
I should coordinate something with Catherine, and where we just like,
Coast to coast.
Coast to coast, crossover, have network with the same spaces. But yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Night.